One of the best things about the 1970s was the sheer amount of parodies, spoofs, and send-ups of popular genres, from westerns to horror movies. An often overlooked category of 1970s comedy was science fiction. Let's go back to the fabulous 1970s and take a look at some of the best sci-fi comedies of the decade.
Initiate sequence. Retrotron Entertainment presents
That 70s Nerd. I explore the hidden depths of 1970s pop culture, from movies and television to books, comics and magazines, music, toys, and technology. Discover forgotten classics and hidden gems you will not find anywhere else with That 70s Nerd. Quark, 1977 to 1978. Created by Buck Henry, best known for co-creating the spy spoof series Get Smart, Quark was broadcast on the NBC network. The series was a satirical take on the science fiction genre, particularly aimed at popular franchises like Star Trek and Star Wars. The show centered on Adam Quark, portrayed by actor Richard Benjamin. Quark is the commander of a spaceship that specializes in collecting space garbage. The show featured a memorable cast: Betty 1 and Betty 2, Trisha and Sib Barnstable. Betty 1 and Betty 2 are identical twin clone navigators on the spaceship. They are virtually indistinguishable from each other, adding to the comedic elements of the series. Gene, spelt Gene, Tim Thomerson. Gene is a transmute, having a full set of both male and female chromosomes, which changes depending on the situation. The character serves as the ship's engineer. Otto Palindrome, Conrad Janis. Otto Palindrome is Quark's supervisor and the head of Perma-1, the space station where the garbage scow is based. He often gives Quark his absurd and impossible missions. Ficus Pandorata, Richard Kelton. Ficus serves as the ship's science officer. His character is a parody of Mr. Spock from Star Trek, displaying extreme logic and a lack of understanding of human emotions. Andy the Robot, Bobby Porter. Andy is a well-meaning but frequently malfunctioning robot who often finds himself in precarious situations, much to the frustration of Commander Quark. The Head, Alan Caillou. The Head is the ultimate authority figure, and the one who assigns missions to Otto Palindrome. Only his head is ever shown, typically as a hologram. The show's narrative structure often borrowed elements from conventional space adventures, but twisted them with absurd and comedic situations. The universe they inhabited was packed with intentional plot holes, wacky science, and humorous misunderstandings. While Quark was unique in its offering and had a dedicated fan following, it was short-lived, lasting only for a single season with 8 episodes, including the pilot. The show struggled with ratings and faced stiff competition from other more conventional and popular TV series. Nevertheless, it achieved cult status among science fiction enthusiasts, and is remembered for its deadpan humor and colorful VFX. Despite its short lifespan, Quark demonstrated the possibilities of merging comedy with science fiction, a hybrid that was relatively rare on television at the time. Many of Quark's elements were influential on later science fiction comedies, such as Third Rock from the Sun and Galaxy Quest. Sadly, the laugh track often gets in the way of the best gags. Dark Star, 1974. Directed by John Carpenter, who co-wrote the screenplay with Dan O'Bannon, both of whom would go on to make classic science fiction films such as the original Alien and The Thing. This low-budget space adventure has since gained a cult following for its unique take on the sci-fi genre. Dark Star was originally conceived as a short student film at the University of Southern California. John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon, both film students at the time, aimed to create a movie that parodied the more serious tones of contemporary science fiction films, most notably Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. The project expanded into a feature film after the duo received additional funding, allowing them to enhance the production quality and extend the runtime to 83 minutes. The film's storyline follows the misadventures of the crew of the spaceship Dark Star, tasked with destroying unstable planets to pave the way for future colonization. The crew navigate the boredom and isolation of space travel. The characters are far from your typical sci-fi heroes. They are portrayed as ordinary, somewhat disinterested men dealing with extraordinary circumstances. One of the film's most memorable elements is a sentient bomb, which the crew must reason with after it malfunctions. This leads to philosophical dialogue that humorously juxtaposes existential dread with mundane technical difficulties. The film's VFX, though modest by today's standards, were inventive for their time, especially considering the shoestring budget of the film. Model work for the spacecraft, interior designs that echoed the claustrophobia of space, and imaginative use of practical effects contributed to the film's unique aesthetic. The homemade feel of the movie added to its charm and set it apart from its contemporaries. Chilean underground filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky was so impressed by Dark Star that he hired Dan O'Bannon to design the visual FX for his ill-fated Dune adaptation. Today, Dark Star is considered a cult classic, celebrated for its quirky take on science fiction and its satirical approach to space exploration. It's a film that reminds us that humor can be found even in the darkest corners of life. For fans of the genre, Dark Star offers a unique viewing experience that is both a product of its time and a timeless commentary on the human experience. Mork and Mindy, 1978. This sitcom, which aired from 1978 to 1982, is not only remembered for its offbeat humor and heartwarming stories, but for introducing the world to the incomparable, talented, and versatile comedian Robin Williams. Mork and Mindy was a spin-off of the popular TV show Happy Days. Its premise was as unconventional as its lead character. Mork, an alien from the planet Orc, lands on Earth to study human behavior. He finds a friend in Mindy McConnell, played by Pam Dauber, a kind-hearted young woman from Boulder, Colorado. The heart and soul of Mork and Mindy was undoubtedly Robin Williams. His portrayal of Mork was a showcase for his unique comedic talent, characterized by rapid-fire improvisation and an energy that seemed to know no bounds. Williams brought an endearing naivete and whimsical charm to Mork, making the character lovable and memorable. The role perfectly encapsulated Williams' ability to combine humor with moments of sincerity and vulnerability. Mork and Mindy was more than just a sitcom. It quickly became a pop cultural phenomenon. Mork's greeting, "Nanu Nanu," along with his rainbow-colored suspenders, became iconic. The show tackled various themes including friendship, tolerance, and the challenges of being an outsider, all the while keeping audiences laughing. Mork and Mindy has not aged very well, but the first season features many memorable episodes. More importantly, no tour of 1970s pop culture is complete without visiting this forgotten sitcom sensation. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 1978. In the annals of science fiction, few works have achieved the cult status and enduring popularity of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Initially conceived as a radio series in 1978 by Douglas Adams, it quickly morphed into a cultural phenomenon, spawning books, TV series, and even some early video games. Douglas Adams, a name now synonymous with quirky, whimsical humor, was at the heart of this revolution. Coming off a successful run as a scriptwriter for Doctor Who, writing some of the series' most beloved episodes such as The Pirate Planet, Adams was inspired by a hiking trip he'd taken years before to create a new kind of science fiction story. He turned the story into a radio series, which enjoyed success in the UK. Adams' vision was a universe where the Earth could be demolished to make way for a hyperspace bypass, where Vogons read poetry as a form of torture, and the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything was a baffling 42. These elements made the series an instant hit. The sound design and music added layers to the storytelling, making the experience immersive and the characters endearing. Buoyed by the success of the radio series, Adams adapted the script into a novel, published in 1979. The novel, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, retained the radio series' essence, blending wit, irony, and a deep understanding of human and alien nature. The novel allowed Adams to expand on his universe, delving deeper into his zany world-building and engaging characters. The novel quickly became a #1 bestseller in the UK and enjoyed enormous success in North America and elsewhere. In fact, the novel and original television series obscured the original radio version for several decades. The impact of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy cannot be overstated. It was a pioneer in multimedia storytelling, moving seamlessly across different platforms. Its influence on pop culture, science fiction, and even technology was profound. It prefigured the concept of digital books, personal devices, and Wikipedia, a community-sourced encyclopedia. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy influenced all sci-fi comedies that came after it, and is still the most popular work created by the late Douglas Adams. Like many of my generation, I grew up with The Guide, and it remains a personal favorite. Sleeper, 1972. In the realm of classic science fiction comedies, one film that often slips under the radar yet deserves a spotlight is Woody Allen's 1972 masterpiece Sleeper. This film is a delightful blend of satirical humor and futuristic fantasy. Loosely based on Rip Van Winkle science fiction stories such as H.G. Wells' The Sleeper Wakes and Armageddon 2419 AD by Francis Nolan, better known as Buck Rogers, Sleeper revolves around the accidental adventures of Miles Monroe, played by Woody Allen, a jazz musician and owner of a health food store. Miles is admitted to the hospital for minor surgery, but ends up cryogenically frozen. He wakes up 200 years later in a drastically changed world. The premise itself is a comical nod to the era's burgeoning interest in cryonics, setting the stage for a series of humorous misunderstandings and cultural clashes. What makes Sleeper particularly engaging is its satirical take on both the past and the future. The film is replete with wry observations about 1970s society, politics, and technology, all the while imagining a future world that is absurd yet strangely plausible. Actually, some of this movie is downright prescient. Woody's character Miles is the perfect fish out of water, and his reactions to the bizarre future society are both relatable and hysterical. The film is filled with slapstick moments, witty one-liners, and satirical jabs that have become synonymous with Allen's style. Despite its modest budget, Sleeper boasts some impressive visual effects and excellent production design. The film's aesthetic is a quirky blend of retro and futuristic, featuring gadgets and scenarios that are both imaginative and amusing. From robot servants to bizarre transportation devices, the film visually embodies its comedic and satirical spirit. And how can we forget the orb and the orgasmatron? Sleeper holds a special place in the history of sci-fi comedies. It predated other classics such as The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Futurama, and Spaceballs. Today, Sleeper stands not just as a perfect artifact of the 1970s, but as a genuinely entertaining film. Its humor is timeless, its satire is sharp, and its vision of the future is oddly compelling. For fans of Woody Allen, science fiction, or just good comedy, Sleeper is a must-watch.